and because I click the button, it's like 1 minute or maybe 1.5 later. So the pop up, that now we are live on Twitch. It will come a little later. Pretty much, it's not a problem.
Yeah, it's a pre-show show. Yeah, I can see the Twitch messages in the chat.
Yeah.
I guess I should also open it in case I send something in the Twitch chat as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will speak maybe like in Italian before like to say everybody. I don't know if you know some Italian words.
I know nothing. And probably if I try, I will accidentally speak like
No,
some
don't worry.
Spanish word or something because I'm ignorant in what is Spanish and
Absolutely, don't worry. Yeah, I see, some guys. I see Francesco. Francesco, he's, I guess, no, I guess he's very, very. I mean, law we say like many, many. I told you, like pretty much the community is divided. Like web, and me, I come from the web, no, and many, many people, they are like binary. So, ciao ragazzi, benvenuti.
Hello,
Yeah, that's.
everybody.
There were so many people that they told like, oh my god, I have some like, I'm excited, like like anxious, for this type of live. So maybe yeah, we can start. I guess we can start. Yes. So yeah, I will start in Italian, Fabian, and after I start. So ciao ragazzi, benvenuti. Questa nuova puntata di Pentesti Made Simple. Oggi direi una puntata, direi memorabile, una live spettacolare vorrei dire. E niente, ok, so we can start. Fabian, thank you very much. It's really a big pleasure for me to have you here. And yeah, let's start, I will say.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. And I hope you said something nice in the beginning. I don't know what you said.
Absolutely, I like welcome everybody, like I told like memorable, like like live, because it's we did some like with some external people, like from America or stuff like this, but it's like the first time, that we have some special guests, like some famous. I mean, to be fair, I mean you are pretty much like. Famous like on the hacking background, but it's some kind of different, it's some kind of, because the content that you are bringing on your channel is some kind of different, but in this different way that they are how can I say, uh, they're like some kind of milestone, no, how we spoke before, no, I mean you have to look this video to understand some some kind of stuff, some basic stuff, and also some some like more things. Mad, thanks for this. Yeah, you can see in the chat, Mad is one of my friend Francesco, and I mean he's loving with you, I mean very, very much. And to be fair, I told to him, Francesco, come in the live, if you want to make some question, like really. And he like he was a little shame, like scary, why, but yeah, absolutely. So, Fabian, I would like to start, and to start to ask you. So, you started like computer engineer starting, right? No, IT in Germany or whatever. After you become, or you started your career like developer, and after you moved to CTF, what I would like to ask you, I mean, if you want, to argument why, or what was these things that bring you from like the world of developing, of the world of CTF, to do challenges, to do, I would not say like immediately security, but the other side, of the coin.
Well, I mean, I was always a little bit interested in IT security and hacking. In late school, when I was doing a lot of web development, a friend told me about SQL injections. So I had like early, points of contact, but it was basically impossible for me to actually learn stuff that was not really good resources, or I just didn't find them. But I had fun like programming, and it was always fun, hearing and learning a little bit about some topics on the side. I also remember around this time I discovered the Google Code Jam, probably was it, Google coding competition. So it was kind of interesting to have also competitions on in coding and so forth. And then one day browsing Hacker News, I stumbled across, a CTF, and I didn't know what a CTF was. It only said that it was inspired by like a war game, and it was about basics of buffer overflow, and that just blew my mind, and I was just so motivated, and I just dove right in. And the competitiveness, it wasn't really competitive in the sense of a CTF with points better than others, but my inner competition with myself, solving this level, moving on to the next level, typical war game style, proving myself that I can do it, that just really motivated me. I guess in some sense I'm a little bit competitive person as well. So
I
it was interesting from a competitive and playful part, and then it was obviously very technical. I knew that this is like really deep technical knowledge, and I love being nerdy about this stuff, so that just drew me towards security and CTFs.
Do you think like security or CTF or like generally, like labs or every kind of resource, that you can train, if it's useful on the like professional world, like when you have to like to work, when you have to, I don't say, like pen test or like generally, what do you look like, what do you think that is like useful, or if you see some kind of gap, like from the training part and when you go in the professional like world, no? So you have to, I don't know, you have to speak with people, you have to like, also like some kind of soft skill and not only like the technical, the skill part.
Sure. There are so many things I could say about this. So, if I don't say what you were thinking about, then interject and redirect me. But
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
course, like soft skills and stuff are important. But I, for example, did a dual study program. So in our university, we had classes on presentations and stuff, and also at the company I was working at in this dual study program, it was very important to do presentations and present yourself and dress in a shirt. So that part was well covered for me. I didn't need to invest more time into that. I could now focus like my free time totally on technical stuff. And for me, CTFs are basically the only way I learned. So I don't know any other way how I would get this professional technical skill to apply at my job. Yeah, it's the only way how I learned. So it's hard for me always to imagine how somebody who hasn't played a lot of labs and challenges, how they can learn those things
Yeah,
basically.
absolutely. If I may, I mean, I ask you like directly, doing CTF, all this year, that you, I guess it, I don't know how CTF, you did or you saw, which is like the programming language that you like more, I would say, but maybe I know the answer. But do you suggest to learn it? I mean, that you saw, and also like in professional market. I mean, when you have to make some kind of penetration test or some kind of test, which is like the most common. Like, I mean, apart PHP, what is like the most common?
That also depends on so much information. There's so many reasons why you could pick one language over another. For example, if your job is a pen tester, then there are a lot of corporate websites that are written in Java and a lot of Java applications. So in that context, Java is the language to go for. If you want to script more small stuff, then I basically always use Python for these things. If you are interested in mobile app security, then and you want to look at iPhone apps, then maybe you want to learn C sharp.
C sharp, yeah.
So it always depends on what your goal is, and it makes a lot of sense to kind of like analyze where you want to go to. And this goal where you want to go to is the motivation, and then you just learn what is necessary to get to that goal, and that will be the language. But generally my advice is always with these things, do what seems fun to you. And so if you have a goal and reaching that goal is fun to you, exploring, then it can be any language you write. People always want these, what is the best language? And I could say Python, learn Python. Python is very flexible. And it's true. It's super flexible. It's easy to read. There are so many resources and tutorials in Python. Python is a great start. But maybe you have just a lot of fun with C sharp. And then did I say C sharp for iOS a moment ago? I meant Objective C.
Yeah.
But if you love coding in C sharp, then it doesn't matter. As long as you are motivated, you will spend time on these things. You will gain more experience, and in the end,
I will tell you, I was in university, and I was studying Java, no? And I was like fourth or second year of Java, and I was thinking, oh my God, I really don't like this kind of program language. I really like hate it. And I was thinking, it was like 2014, 2015, and I was programming in Java on, I remember at the time they were teaching us on Fedora, no? And I was thinking, like on myself, I want to do security. I don't need Java, I have to learn like PHP, JavaScript, or other language. Today, I mean, I regret, because that period, I study, I did the exam, but after, I leave it. I didn't study anymore. And today, I would say like that 70% of application when you are doing like black box pen testing, I mean, man, there is Java behind.
But
So,
and but that depends on your context. So exactly,
yeah,
what
exactly.
I've heard from many people in the industry is exactly what you are saying, is this experience with Java. I'm, for example, I'm a bit more lucky with the projects I'm getting. I get very rarely Java applications actually, so I'm a bit lucky in my context. But it's true what you hear about the large industry. If you really talk about huge clients and huge web applications, they are so often like Java.
Absolutely, yeah. One thing's that I mean, so we understand, I guess that everybody in this chat, or I mean, in our community, we saw, your last video. We were speaking like before, like pen testing versus pen testing and versus bug bounty. And what I liked and how or how we spoke before is like that you make like some name of like AppSec, and I would say that you found the really, really, I mean, the perfect match, the perfect word for what is going, I mean, what is the really what we are doing. I mean, so I would like to ask you, when you pretty much, your YouTube channel, stuff like this, you speak also maybe 70% about binary, this is some kind of passion that, you grow up, you studied, or you put, also in your every, like normal daily work, or is some kind of different stuff?
First of all, so I didn't come up with the term AppSec. It's a
Yeah, yeah, no, no, absolutely, no, no. I mean it. No, but I mean, you found the word. I mean, to associate, to
yeah,
connect together. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely, yes.
yeah. And so your question was if binary exploitation is something I do in my work.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like only passion that you do, like
Yeah, yeah.
CTF or stuff like this, or
Uh, it very rarely came up in my professional work, doing mostly web application stuff, but there are some cases where it appears. For example, we had a client that did some cloud stuff, so it was very much web things, but they had a small component written in C, which was doing some processing data ingress. They wanted this to be very, very fast, so they had this in C written component to listen on a port, just being as fast as possible to take these TCP packets in, and then send them further away, do some load balancing or whatever. So in the end, sure, the whole application was web, but in order to provide a good service to the client, I obviously had to look into that C component as well. And being able, was a very simple C component, so it wasn't like too complex. So very basic binary exploitation knowledge and basic experience how to maybe instrument that for basic fuzzing, at least to give the client a certain level of auditing of that part. This is where then binary exploitation and CTF experience totally applies. Being able to write a quick fuzzer, even if you can't exploit it, but finding a crash, finding the TCP packet that will crash their ingress, whatever. Yeah,
yeah,
that is one of the examples where I could apply it. And then in the end, I'm asking, or like to ask other people that are pen testers or doing web penetration testing, AppSec. Sure, you most likely will not do binary exploitation at all. And maybe in that case, you will tell the client, sorry, that's not our expertise. But I don't know, it's like for me personally, I
it's
have a
tough.
hard time to just say, oh, sorry, I don't know it. I feel like if they pay us so much money and they can somehow a little bit expect us maybe to constantly expand on this and maybe have at least a little bit of knowledge to maybe apply or understand the very basics of binary exploitation in such a case, for example.
Yeah, absolutely, man. For example, in my case, most of my time I do. like black box, so I never had, like professional, like at work, the opportunity, or the chance, to make some binary stuff like this, so you have your target, you have your specific target, maybe one domain, maybe more domains, and then, like you have your web application, maybe, they give you some user account. So I mean, I can understand, pretty much. And yeah, I mean, you were lucky, because you have some kind of a little more big overview, like you do like web, but you do also like binary. So now I understand, that it's like something that maybe you learn in CTF, but also was useful like for normal job, like professional. I mean, how long took you like to, I don't understand, to say learn binary, or the pattern. I mean, how long was, like, for example, you studied like on book, videos, or and how much time, you think that could be useful to, like put yourself to understand. I don't say Linux or Windows, but like generally, like how to understand the binary word that is like, maybe it's like also more bigger than web.
Hmm. Yeah, as you said, bigger than web, there are a lot of different
Different, yes,
areas,
but like
and
generic, if you have to, I
yeah.
mean,
So I I,
or
I
like
think it
like,
doesn't
like your
have to.
personal
Yeah.
experience. Yeah,
In
absolutely.
general, I think you don't have to spend and go that much deep. In the end, as a professional and as somebody in security, you'll probably have the ability to learn and pick up new stuff very quickly anyway. It's important just that you have heard of these things before and that you somewhat have an idea how things work and have a little bit of an intuition. And so for these basics, I think it's totally enough to go through some very basic binary exploitation labs on over the wire, or exploit exercise like my videos also. If you cover these basics and don't even go that deep, you will hear about all the important terms like ASLR, maybe red tulip C, then sprinkle into it a little bit of AFL fuzzing, how to set up basic fuzzing or so. And I think that basic experience is completely sufficient um, as an additional skill to your larger web pen testing
So
skill.
okay, so like to don't. I mean, also because I think that it's like also some kind of similar on web. Like your secret. Step by step. When you find something, and I guess that is like also in the binary. You find. I mean, you have some kind of low or normal knowledge about binary, and you find something like how to bypass now the ASLR, and you don't know it. Okay, so I interrupt what I'm doing and I go to study these particular things, and after I come back, and slowly, also how you are telling in the video, you go more forward, step by step, and after, you put all these pieces together. And I would say that this kind of methodology you can apply like everywhere, I guess. It's if it's binary or web or program networking or.
Yeah, a developer probably has to do that too. If they face a little bit of new technology or new area, they don't really know how to work with that stuff. Yeah, I worry sometimes that in our jobs we don't get enough space for these things. I work as a freelancer, so I have a lot of free time. I only work project based, so if something new comes up and I can spend like 2 days digging deep into things, I don't have to worry so much about other stuff around it. I have the freedom, but as a regular employee, I guess a lot of companies don't give the employees a lot of space for these excursions into new topics.
So many
Um,
people, I guess, that will agree with you.
yeah, and that worries me a little bit because I think, first of all, I think as a professional, like consultant or auditor doing this kind of work, this is extremely important to constantly, dig deep into excursions. And I worry that it will kind of like create, um, I don't know, like the people get stuck, they don't grow further, and then they kind of like become not as skilled anymore over time when technology changes because they never got the time to
Yeah, they make like the basic
new
stuff,
stuff.
but they don't go. Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that I can fully agree with you. And you told like you are a freelancer, and like this is my personal question: how you can manage? I mean, because this is something cool. You have like your life like freelancer that you are doing your job. So with company and stuff like this. But after there is the other kind of job that is like passion, YouTube and other stuff. How you are able, and this is it's like also for me to have some different idea opinion. How you are able to manage to merge all this stuff together. I mean, because okay, we have 24 hours, but you have to sleep, you have to, you're also your social life and stuff like this, and it's not
Maybe
so
not.
easy. Or maybe not. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the time is limited. There's no real magic behind it. I have also phases where I'm very unproductive and I waste a lot of time watching YouTube videos and play games and so forth. There are a few uh, aspects of it that make it possible. One of it is that I'm a freelancer and I can choose to take on projects or not. So if you look at the raw hours that I'm actually working this job, it's probably not a full-time job. It's more like a three-quarter,
Mixed.
maybe half a job or something, just pure hourly wise. Because it means like I work 1 week and maybe I take a break another week. So in the sense to be able to do YouTube, I have to work less and I earn less. That's a conscious decision that I make to not. I could earn a lot more if I take on more projects and do pen testing, but live overflow is so important to me. And of course, there's a little bit of financial aspects nowadays as well. So it's not that bad anymore as it used to be. But it is a decision I make to not work as much as I could or should, or maybe to have the time to do YouTube. So that's one that's one part, and then there are a few other tricks like pre what's it called creating videos already, and then scheduling them for later release, having a little bit of a buffer and queue, so I can focus on work for like a month, and then for example right now this week I don't have a project this week and next week, and my plan is to continue editing some of the pseudo edit videos, for example. So they are, pre-edited, they are done, and I can then release them during weeks where I'm working.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yes. Yeah, this is something that I fully agree. Yeah, I fully agree because in this case, you're like merging both, and these things, that I was not able to do it, but I found the solution, to have some kind of buffer. So videos that you did before and you schedule when to go outside. I found like the solution, to going live, like on Twitch or stuff like this. And the things that I found helpful is like, that I don't have to prepare. I mean, I have to prepare the live, I have to prepare, the labs or stuff like this. But I mean, I do the live and how it's coming. I mean, it's coming. Something happened. This is like the live, and but I can understand, like how much the effort, because the people, we were speaking before, they see like that particular 10 minutes of video, but they don't maybe, really understand what is going like back. So, what I wanted to ask you is like, that I took, like question before the guy come here because, I have the guy, that he wanted to ask you. This is some generic question. So, it's like a generic question, the people making how you see, like, this is very good, maybe, like freelancer, from the freelancer part, how you see or what you think, how the IT security, like generally, or maybe, if you want to speak like offensive part, will will be or will change in 5 years, or what is your, I mean, idea, no?
Hmm. Good question. Very difficult. Uh, IT, because IT security is such a large field. I mean, from the perspective as a freelancer, I actually don't think that much will change for me. The same companies and more companies want pen test and want to have their code audited. More and more companies do that for their products. So I don't expect that to change much, except the technologies that are being used. Sorry. Um, I cannot really predict what will be, the style of application 5 years from now, but I can look back and see that, 5 years ago, PHP was much more prominent. And for example, nobody really did containers or Kubernetes. And nowadays, a client will always have some kind of cluster, or um, it will be written in Node.js, and you will have front ends like React and so forth. So there has already been a lot of change, and I know this will change in the future. I just don't know yet what those development trends will be. But what is important for me basically is I don't want to get stuck. Like, I don't want to stop learning new things, because I know those things will change the next 5 years. And the cool thing is with the job I have is that I always, see what clients come to us. And so as soon as new technologies come in, I automatically learn them through those new clients, because I also have the freedom to,
to
dig
to,
into
to do
these
it, yes.
things.
And
Yeah.
speaking like the video, I will connect, like that you were speaking before, like that in Europe is not so common, or I mean, it's not so useful. The other kind of pen testing, like corporation pen test. How do you see this one? Like in USA, I guess it's like pretty like much. Every company is doing this kind of penetration test. How do you see like in Europe? It will take like many companies that will start to do it, like red team. And the question is like there are also some kind of expenses now regarding like only like web application pen test AppSec instead of like all pen test of one corporation. It will change something for you, or maybe the process will be a little like slowly.
I so I have to say that my view on what is common in Germany or in Europe
Yeah,
is very
absolutely,
much
yes.
my bubble. So I know that there are companies that are offering that, and often pen testing companies offer both the regular red teaming pen testing and the AppSec kind of stuff. From my bubble experience, I feel like the AppSec stuff is just much more common, even though they might offer both. Yeah, I'm sure more companies will be also interested in this kind of pen testing and red teaming as well. I think let's say I know that a lot of certifications and ISO stuff, and I don't know, I actually don't know all these things,
Pattern,
but
yeah.
yeah, I know that they have certain requirements on that a company needs to have pen tested, especially when you look in the financial area. Like by regulation, they are required to run these tests. So I would expect that this regulation expands into much more industries, and maybe in 2 years, an automotive supplier is required by BMW, that if they are BMW supplier, that they have to have a certain certification, which means they have to get a pen test and a network
Yeah,
classical pen test
absolutely.
stuff. I expect this stuff to grow more, which I don't like. I don't like this whole certification and very checkbox thing. But I'm that work will there will be so much of it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So now I have the guy, one guy of the community, Francesco, that he wanted, like to make you a question like directly. I will see maybe if I'm able to do it. Let's see. Hi,
Hello.
Evening.
Francesco. Can
Hi,
you
hi Fabian.
Hi,
can you
Hi
hear me?
Rasmus.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, Francesco, here is it. You can make your question now. So
Yes, thank you Fabian for hearing. I also like you love binary exploitation better than maybe web or app security. And so this is my question. Uh, Reviewing your path to that you learned all of what you do, all of what you've done. W- would you have changed something after having the work experience? Maybe because I'm 17, so I really don't have the experience. So I think that what I'm doing is just like a hobby, but it's just like this, or for you is not. Thanks.
Thanks for the question. And as I mentioned previously with the example of web pen testing, where there was a component of binary exploitation, uh, that in that case, kind of the basics are only required, and especially in CTFs and binary exploitation, especially in binary exploitation in CTFs, you have a lot of very crazy small tricks about some kind of heap exploitation. And in the real world, if you do white box pen testing for a client, it doesn't really matter that you can exploit it. That you don't actually need to write a crazy exploit, because it takes so much time, and it's usually enough to find the crash. It's fun to write the exploit. It's maybe cool, and it can be done for the client, to show it off or so forth. But it's probably a bit of a waste of time, and it's enough to show them the crash. So in the real world, or for this classical white box pen testing stuff, it's the skill to find the bug is probably more important than to exploit the bug. And a lot of CTFs focus more on how to exploit certain bugs. Maybe the bugs are very quickly to find, but they have some crazy exploitation techniques. So I think kind of like the bug finding process, so basics of fuzzing and typical code reviews in those sense, at least for that part of job, is very important. Now, if you are interested in actual, kind of more like actual security research, finding bugs, maybe selling them, to Serodium, or doing, kind of research in that area, then exploitation also suddenly becomes very important. But yeah, it depends a bit on kind of what you do.
Yeah.
Thanks, Fabian. I want to make another question. This is more like personal. From all the videos you have made, maybe my favorite are Mind Test from the Google CTF and the binary exploitation series, the old one, but maybe mainly the new one that's made just like a new season of binary exploitation course. Especially in Mind Test, I want to ask you, how did you approach in hardware hacking? Because it's like really low level stuff. So do you need really some prerequisites to study and mainly try to find the bug and exploit it, or it's like binary, so you need to fuse and mainly to try and find the crash?
So, I mean, Mind Test is like a challenge that is not really a security bug, right? It wasn't like an actual exploit. It was about understanding some logic gates and finding a correct input. So this is a typical challenge that is not so much about, finding an actual bug or crash. It's more about understanding and reverse engineering. So it's more like a reverse engineering challenge. Now, do you need to understand anything about hardware? I mean, Mind Test was specifically, not a hardware challenge. It was like in Minecraft. So it was about logic gates. So you need to understand, basics of Boolean logic and generally how logic gates work. But then, of course, hardware reverse engineering tooling suddenly helps, or generally, like, yeah, basically, for example, there was this one solution where somebody used FPGA tools for development and used those to reverse this logic pattern, basically let the analyzer for the FPGA find the solution for you, kind of thing. I used a different tool, but kind of like, which was doing the same thing. I mean, all of it, so it doesn't actually really require a lot of hardware, but hardware knowledge could help you in solving it. In the end, it's more like it's about abstracting it away, right? Like, it starts as Mind
Yeah.
Test with logic gates, and so you need to be able to identify, oh, these are logic gates. I can express them as logic formulas, and then suddenly it's away from hardware anything at all. Now it's about a mathematical logical formula, and now you need to have the experience how to minify it, or how to solve it, and then Z3 or something like this to solve these equations.
It makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the point. Thanks,
Okay.
Fabian, and thanks, Rhea, for the
Thanks to
good
you,
time.
Francesco. Thanks to
Yeah,
you.
thanks for the question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye, Francesco. Bye. I have another question. So, like we are starting, Fabio, to go like in the end, like 45 minutes. And this is a good question. It's written in Italian, but I will translate you. So another Francesco is asking me to ask you like, so the IT, like cybersecurity world, or like general IT, is like amazing. I mean, it's very big, very, what do you think, like it's better, I mean, like your personal opinion, to focus yourself in something like more vertical, I would say, or to try to learn as much as you can, like not so much deep maybe, or maybe to go in some kind of horizontal like knowledge, no? So like web, no, maybe I don't need to know very good like JavaScript, PHP, but maybe more technologies I know, maybe it's better, for my job or for CTF or everything. This is a very good question, but
Yeah,
absolutely, it's like personal. I mean, what you found maybe in your career, in your pattern.
Yeah, exactly. It's very subjective. It depends on what you mean with better. For example, when you are focused very, very hard on a certain topic, maybe you are such an expert in that field that you can charge a lot of money just because you are the only expert in the world, or one of the few experts in the world on this. Yeah. So it's maybe better for money. On the other hand, maybe the topic you are very specialized in just has no demand, and then you kind of wasted your time, I guess.
Yeah.
Then also,
Yeah.
what is better for you personally? What makes you happy and what is fun to you? If it's digging into stuff is fun to you, or just having a broad understanding is fun to you. In the end, what gives when something is fun to you, you will spend more time on it. So it's better to spend, even one thing is made better than the other. Just because you have fun doing the one thing, you will probably do it more than the thing you don't have fun in. And that, yeah. So the other one
Depends.
is
Yeah.
maybe better. But for me personally, I just love technology as a whole. Everybody who has watched my channel knows I'm jumping between all those different topics. Hardware is so not applicable to my job as a web AppSec doing stuff. Binary exploitation already is, scratching only a little bit my work. But in the end, I feel like knowing a lot more and realizing similarities between the different topics, it just adds so much to my general understanding of everything. And I personally like that a lot, but I couldn't really say if that's now better for
Yeah.
my job or not. I mean, I'm sure somebody who is focusing to have a concrete example in web pen testing, you might need to know a lot of behaviors, how the browser reacts. Let's take, for example, an XSS or a CSRF, and now you need to understand, is a CSRF possible if you have cookie authentication, if you have API header authentication? Is the cookie HTTP only? Is on what domain is the cookie set? What are the CSP policies? If a request cross origin will include those cookies or not? What can the fetch JavaScript API send a request to cross origin with cookies, without? There are so many small things which, if you have all that knowledge and you look at an application, you might immediately know, yeah, that is possible or that is not possible. Now, my brain is so full of bullshit that every time, like I've done this hundreds of times, but every time I don't remember what exactly is possible. So I'm sitting there re-experimenting and retrying, was that now possible or not? And so maybe if I would focus more on web, I could remember these things maybe better. And so I would maybe be more efficient doing web. But
Yeah, like immediately, yes, absolutely, yeah. I understand, yeah. I guess that this kind of question for Francesco, because and you took, like I would say, the right the perfect example, because he's lover of SSRF. I guess one of the best vulnerabilities that he like. But yeah, because he's focused now, and he do like me now, like weapon test, but he want to sometimes, we do like together bug bounty, but in the same time he want to do like coding, developing, but in the same time he want to understand binary. So the question is also, there are so many stuff, so many resources, so many technologies to understand, but hey, I mean, you have to go like step by step. So sometimes it's better to understand, like, instead of to understand like very deep, to understand only like the behavior, and after you can dig more, you can fudge more, like more deeply. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely very good question. Yeah, very good answer. Thank you very much. Thank you, Francesco, for the question. So like closing, and this is my personal so pretty much, like when we are doing like AppSec, when we are doing like white box code review, pretty much, like you read the code, understand what the software, what the application is doing, trying to understand how, the particular function, what is doing that particular function, and to understand, or maybe to try to find some flow, or some logic issue, stuff like this. Do you have some kind of personal methodology? I mean, when you start, you have to do a AppSec on an application to read the code. Do you have some kind of methodology? I mean, you have some step that this I followed to understand, or to be sure that you covered more or the most surface attack.
yeah, that is very difficult to answer. I follow some methodology, but it's definitely not. I sometimes thought about,
Standard, yeah.
like, mind mapping it, because there are a lot of things that decide where I then change my approach. And so it very much depends on the application. Of course, there are applications where it's very simple to identify all the inputs. Exactly, only, data only comes in here. And so it's very, very easy to then look, okay, it goes here, the data goes here, the data goes here, this is safe, I can ignore the rest. So sometimes that is easy. Sometimes applications have tons of inputs, but very few very interesting things where interesting things happen. So sometimes it makes more sense to look at the critical parts, where something interesting could happen, and see, can I even get input there? And that again depends on the application. If it has a lot of inputs, it might make sense to only look for the risky stuff and look backwards. If it has only very few inputs, it might make sense to look the other direction. Then again, you don't know maybe at the start if it has a lot of inputs or a lot of critical stuff. So you start maybe with a guess or with a hunch, and then at some point you realize, holy shit, I'm looking through these functions. I either don't understand where the data is going right now because it uses some weird Java dependency
Factor, yeah.
function or whatever, like crazy thing, and you don't understand anymore how the data flows, and then you change the stuff. I mean, if you have dynamic testing available, it sometimes makes sense to search for certain keywords. So I use an API that sounds interesting, and maybe the application is so abstracted away in layers that I don't understand anymore how the data flows through an application. But I noticed a keyword or parameter, so I start searching for that in the code, and maybe I can identify the actual code that is implementing something, and then I can like trace back from there.
Yeah. So like generally, so in this case, you don't have like a standard methodology, but you follow some step, or I mean, you go like, okay, you have your experience, I mean, with experience with this reading code and code, you have, like the eyes, okay, there immediately there is something. When, for example, I'm doing pen test, not white, it's like kind of black. There, I don't say that, I don't follow like pretty straightforward like the OWASP or other methodology, but I have some kind of my personal methodology that I follow to understand. I tried, authentication, for example. I tried authorization. So I try to cover the best, or I mean, what I can think the best surface attack, because I mean, when we are doing pen test, we have to try to find, I mean, as much as possible vulnerabilities, because I mean, malicious attacker, he need only one, but we have to cover like pretty much everything. So I have this kind of stuff. When we go to the other side on the white, I mean, code review, so there is not some kind of methodology like straightforward, no? So I mean, okay, you read the code from this part, you jump to another part, because I mean, you have to follow like the code. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it also depends on the application. Sometimes sometimes the code is so ugly to read that it actually makes more sense to kind of do a black box approach, but then you always have the cheat sheet and you can look into. So you look at all the API calls from a black box perspective and look what does even look interesting. You mentioned authentication. That obviously is a high priority, something I want to test very quickly and early on, because that is like a critical part, of course. So I might start in kind of a black box approach, and then I might try to identify where is that part implemented, have a quick glance at it. Are there maybe parameters I didn't notice? Are there maybe authentication methods that are available but they are not used in the
hidden, yeah,
that weren't really exposed or so, and then
yeah, absolutely, yeah. So guys, I don't know if they have some other question. I guess I hope that you enjoy this kind of live. The question, I mean, like speak with each other, was for me was really really interesting. The mindset, how we spoke before, like the logic and all the stuff that bring like from engineering, developing, and in the world of the security that is. I mean, it's big. So I don't know if the guys they have any kind of question. If not.
I could add one more thing about the methodology, that sometimes when I audit code, I get very frustrated or tired because I don't really understand the code flow, or I can't find anything interesting. Then sometimes I'm drifting away and can't concentrate anymore on the things. And then this is when I kind of like jump back to actually very basic checklists. This is then actually when I open up the OWASP wiki. And just like, because sometimes you don't see the forest for the trees anymore. I
So it
need to like
depends,
kind
yeah.
of like reset myself somehow, and I start with a very dumb, basic, whatever. It doesn't have to be a good methodology. You know, OWASP top 10 is perfect enough. You just need something to guide you a little bit, and that little bit of guidance then helps me to get out of my lock that I have, and then I
But
can, yeah.
it's very good. I mean, because in this case, to follow. I mean, you did 5 hours on the code to read the code, and I mean your mind. I mean, it's like crazy. So you go, as how you told, like pretty straightforward, and you say, and in that particular, I mean, you didn't remember, or you say, oh, you told like, okay, I will test it like after. You go to look the OWASP, like, or other methodology, and you see, oh my god, I forgot to test this kind of stuff. So in some case could be useful. I mean,
Yeah,
no.
absolutely.
So I have this, when I'm doing pen test, I have some kind of checklist. I mean, it doesn't mean, okay, I say, okay, today I want to start from authentication. I mean, I can change, of course. I mean, but to have some kind of of things, I say, okay, before to close, before everything, did I check everything? I mean, all the input, all the flow, everything. I mean, so yeah, absolutely, yes. I'm trying to read to say, to
There was a question earlier about AI in
if you want to speak, we can do it, yeah.
yeah.
In common application, do you think a cybersecurity field will develop the specialize in this security application?
I,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
if you want to, yeah, to reply, this is yeah, this is some kind of futuristic. Thank you for
yeah.
tutor. Yeah.
Yeah, I also thought about sometimes, there are certainly some kind of AI vulnerabilities, or it's really hard to call them vulnerabilities because they are kind of like designed in a certain way. You know, for let's do an example, like, the YouTube algorithm is some kind of AI trained to recommend you certain videos and certain things. So there's a possibility that somebody figures out the correct input of tags, descriptions, and so forth, and thumbnail that makes the neural network tickle the neurons in a certain way to make this video explode on the platform for whatever reason. Also, is that now? It's probably not a security bug, but it's an attack against the AI. And I think AI or machine learning stuff is not often used in security ways. They are used on how the application certain features, like the YouTube algorithm. So, and I wouldn't classify these necessarily as security bugs, but they might be abuse bugs that a company still would want to fix. And I'm some bug bounties have, for example, the Google bug bounty has a category about abuse bugs. If you can show them issues that could be used for abuse. And I think it's important to kind of understand that there's a distinction between issues that are abusable by somebody, and then there are issues that have actual security and privacy kind of like implications. So I don't really see, or haven't really seen, that applications use machine learning in a way that affects the application security, because this AI is not usually used in authentication or access control or something like this. They are used to just display, recommend stuff, and so I don't think there's a lot of applicability for security directly, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of abuse potential. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. Yes, absolutely. Yes. So, like concluding, like finishing, we have like some thanks for somebody where stop wasting your time to learn more hacking. I guess that this video was pretty pretty good, So yeah, thank you, Mario. Thank you. And one thing that I want to tell, and also I guess that my friend Francesco, one of the best video. I mean, all the video, they are best. But what sometimes, I go, in your channel to look was the live, with Ezekiel, like for Google, for me, and also, sometimes, I tell to Francesco, let's go to, to look it together. And the story, that you created, and how also, that, he showed, how he did it. For me, I mean, okay, I mean, you are really accurate. I mean, because you studied the technologies, you didn't give up because okay, that's SSRF which was not working. So many people say, oh, okay, maybe it's by design, or maybe every company say, it's by design. So he didn't give up, no, and there the effort, make me to say, I mean, yes, I can do it more, and this is pushing me, to learn more, to try more stuff. And for me, this kind of content, for me, they are really amazing, really.
Yeah, I have the same reaction to what Ezekiel was showing to me, and it wasn't really, that the video has such a good story and that it's so kind of like a detective story or very engaging. Wasn't even like my work. Ezekiel prepared so well for our call. I was basically just retelling it in my language a little bit, what he was doing, but essentially he exactly, with the excitements. I don't know what the word is, but the excitement curves, kind of like he showed me all these little puzzle pieces and then showed me how it paid off. And he prepared everything. He prepared a burp, file
Yeah,
with all the requests for me to really like go through each step of his process. So, it was basically only thanks to him that this video is such an fun
amazing.
story,
Yeah,
because he
absolutely. Yeah.
already, prepared for it.
And I learned so many stuff, like protobuf. I mean, okay, yeah. I mean, I know these things, and it was every beautiful how every piece is. Okay, he was waiting, and that particular time he found that, that I mean, it was wow
This
for me.
this
It's like
bug this bug was so weird that even when Google was receiving the bug report at first, they were saying, or their initial reaction was, "That doesn't make sense. This won't work. Like, why would this call these GSLB like why this makes no sense at all?" So in the code, it must have been also something very weird. Why this even like happened? They didn't initially like see why this even makes sense. So yeah, it was very weird.
amazing. Yeah, amazing. So, guys, thank you very much. Really, really, it's a big pleasure for me, Fabian, to have you here. If there is not any question, I will say that for today it's everything. So, thank you very much, Fabian. Was big, very, I would say, pretty good live. I would say, no. I mean, for my side, because it's not so common, to have this kind of, live, with, I mean, with kind of people, like you, that they like, to, yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I actually think you did a great job, and the questions were also very interesting. So
Thank you.
maybe
Thank you very much.
we can repeat this at some point. I
Up.
really thought this was a lot more engaging or interesting that some
Absolutely.
of the other interviews I had. So
Thank you very much. It's like, I mean, that you tell these things for me is like, oh my God, it's like exciting. So, guys, thank you very much, and see you next time. I will close,
yeah,
Fabian.
thank you. Bye bye.